If you look closely at the list of the richest people in the world's biggest economies, you will find a hidden cultural code behind the wealth. In the United States, the title of the richest person usually rotates between Elon Musk. In American business culture, having a degree from a top university focusing on disruptive technology and building a new system from 0 to 1 is usually seen as the farthest way to the top. In China, we see a similar story of wealth creation. The top of the wealth pyramid is mostly controlled by internet and e-commerce giants. They chase massive scale, smart computer algorithm, and lightning fast growth. But when we look at the world's third largest economy, Japan, the script is completely different. According to the Forbes Japan Richest, the man who defeated Dutch dreamer Masayoshi Son to sit on the richest man's throne is Tadashi Yanai. He doesn't build rockets, he doesn't work on AI, and he doesn't make a microchip. For his whole life, he had only done one business: selling the most basic, cheapest t-shirts, underwear, and fleecy jackets, often without even a logo. Why is this? Today, fast fashion giant Zara puts out 500 new designs every week, and China's Shein adds thousands of new items every day. In the world, how could a tailor shop from a small coal mining town build a 100 billion retail empire? Today, we'll take our time to do a deep, hardcore business analysis by comparing the business thinking of the US, China, and Japan. We'll uncover how Uniqlo copied the American brand Gap back in the way. We will also explore how Tadashi Yanai used his cool one-way 9 loses philosophy to turn traditional clothing sale into a highly advanced technology world. To understand why Uniqlo was able to win, we must first look outside of the clothing industry. We need to look at the basic difference in the business style of the US, China, and Japan. The core of the US style is disruption and standards. Silicon Valley giants love to build operating system. They create the rules and let the whole world play in their system. The core of the Chinese style is scale and the speed. They use the huge supply chain and the massive population to copy and expand the business model at a breathtaking speed. But the Japanese style is defined by two old words, monosukuni and takumi. That means craftsmanship and monster craftsman. Because Japan is an island country with very few natural resources, great business leaders in history like Korosuke Matsushita built companies as public tools for society. This history forced the Japanese companies to be obsessed with facial details. They pushed the cost and the quality of facial products to the absolute limit. Tadashi Yanai took this exact industrial Japanese refinement and injected it into the traditional clothing industry. Let's go back to the 1970s. Yanai had just taken over his father's tailor shop named Ogoni Shoji. At that time, the Japanese clothing industry was very inefficient and unfriendly to the customers. Also, the traditional Japanese omotenashi culture means the salespeople would follow customers everywhere, pushing them to buy. It was very straightforward. To find a way out, Yanai flew to the United States. It was in America that he had two major business moments. His first realization came from the American brand Gap. He discovered Gap's secret wealth, the SPA mode, specialty store retails of the private label apparel. Gap cut out all the wholesalers. They designed the clothes themselves, found factories to produce them, and opened their own direct store to sell them. This absolute control over the whole supply chain completely opened Yanai's eyes. His second realization happened at American University co-ops. Yanai was amazed to see that students bought clothes just like they bought pens or magazines. Basic clothes were neatly stacked on shelves. Customers carried a bucket and picked what they wanted with zero salespeople bothering them. Then they just walked to a central counter to pay. Bringing those two valuable lessons back, Yanai opened the first Uniqlo clothing warehouse in Hiroshima in 1984. His concept was way ahead of that time. Clothing should not be luxury items to show off your status. They should be high quality, cheap, part of everyday life. On opening day, because they opened at 6 a.m., they even attracted many people who just finished their night shift. There were so many customers that Yanai had to use a radio broadcaster to apologize to the crowded waiting in line. But if you're thinking that copy Americans' homework means Uniqlo was successful forever, you underestimate how cruel the business world is. Traditional Japanese business culture likes to avoid risks. People usually stay in one company for the whole life and get promoted just for getting older. In this culture, Tadashi Yanai is an absolute outsider. His most famous management philosophy, which is also the title of his best-selling book, is called One Win, Nine Losses. In his 23 management rules, he wrote every aggressively stability is a crisis, not growing equals death. Most media only look at Uniqlo's wins, but they rarely report on the terrible losses they experienced. Yanai had paid two massive tuition fees to learn his lessons. The first loss was planned overseas expansion. In 2001, carrying their huge success from Japan, Uniqlo ambitiously rushed into the UK market. They opened 21 stores in the British in just 3 years. The result? British people simply didn't buy it. Huge financial loss faced Yanai to be ruthless. He closed 16 stores all at once and retreated in defeat. He learned a bloody lesson. When you go overseas and no one knows your brand, the large suburban store model will fail. You must go high profile and open flagship stores in the absolutely best shopping area of New York or Paris first. The second news was even more painful. It was a failed crossover. In 2002, Yanai tried to bring Uniqlo's powerful SPA supply chain and delivery model into the farming business. He launched the Skip vegetable brand, wanting to give Japanese families standard high qualities and cheap fresh vegetables. It sounds like perfect logic, right? But reality hit him hard. After running for only 1 year and a half, the project lost 2.6 billion yen and was forced to shut down immediately. Why couldn't a clothing business model sell vegetables? Yanai thought about it painfully. Because farming depends entirely on the weather, you can control the speed of the delivery truck, and you can control the supermarket shelves, but you can't control the day's rain or temperatures. Therefore, you can't control the final quality and amount of the vegetables. Most people, after losing 2.6 billion yen, would probably hide back in the comfortable zone. But Yanai didn't. This failure gave him a priceless business insight. If you cannot deeply control every tiny molecular step of the physical manufacturing process. Just improving the delivery and packaging at the end is not enough. You will never have a core advantage. This specific failure forced Uniqlo to give up any fantasy of making quick money. Instead, they focused entirely on the high-tech manufacturing of clothing. This is what led to the marriage of the century with a giant tech materials company. Uniqlo's real protection wall was never cheap prices, it was technology. While Spanish fast fashion giant Zara compressed its design to store cycle into a terrifying 14 days to chase weekly tweet, Uniqlo did the exact opposite. One of their basic items might have a preparation period of up to a whole year. To ensure that their partner factories in China, Vietnam, and Bangladesh could meet Japanese crazy quality standards, Uniqlo invented the Takumi system. They took Japanese textile, Vietnam, and dye exports with over 30 years of domestic experience and sent them directly to their overseas factories. Those old Japanese monsters didn't just go there to inspect, they lived in the workshops. They taught the local workers exactly how to adjust the temperatures of the drying and how to find time of the tension of the weaving machine. This is a forceful export of the Japanese monosukuny spirit. This extreme pressure on the supply chain won them a massive victory in the 1998 Fleece War. Back then, fleece was mostly an exclusive material for American outdoor brands. It was extremely expensive, cost over 10,000 Japanese yen. Yanai went to the Japanese chemical giant Toray to buy the raw materials. Then he used the Chinese factories to process mass production. He bluntly drove the price of a high-quality fleece jacket down to 1,800 yen. That year, they sold 26 million fleece jackets in Japan. On average, 1 in every 5 Japanese people owned one. This single bottle makes Uniqlo a legend. After testing the sweetness of technology, Uniqlo and Toray built an extremely deep partnership. They stopped going to the market to buy ready-made fabrics. Instead, just like developing microchips, they began researching new materials at the molecular level. The most classic example is HEATTECH warm underwear to solve the pain point of bulky winter clothing. Uniqlo and Toray created over 10,000 prototypes in the laboratory. Finally, they developed a super thin acrylic fiber that is only 1/10 the thickness of a human hair. This fiber can absorb the moisture naturally released by the human body and turn that movement into heat at a microscopic level. Since its launch in 2003, HEATTECH has never changed its basic shape. However, every year it goes through a 1% microscopic update, becomes thinner, warmer, anti-static, or adding moisturization ingredients. After 20 years of the constant improvement, global sales of the HEATTECH cereals has crossed an amazing 1.5 billion pieces. This is what it means to make clothing use the brand of the tech company. When Uniqlo became unbeatable in Japan, they had conquered the global fashion center, New York, Paris, and London, but they faced a massive brand gap. Why would a Westerner think an Asian brand so cheap underwear and basic clothing was cool? Yanai's ultimate answer was knifewear. The Japanese philosophy behind the word extremely restrained. Clothing themselves have no personality. The person wearing them in the main character, much like Muji's no brand philosophy. Uniqlo embraced the Zen idea of Japanese minimalism. Less is more. This perfectly hits the sweet spot for well-educated Western elites who were tired of being walking billboard for luxury brand. To make this concept a massive hit in New York, the famous creative director Kashiwa Sato made a very bold decision. With the New York flagship store opened in 2006, he plastered the entire city with high visible, bright red Japanese katakana logos. Americans couldn't read those four characters at all, but Sato grasped a physiological hook among Western culture elites at that time. In the 20s, thanks to the population of movies like Lost in Translation, Westerns had a cool cyberpunk, high-efficient, and neon-lit fantasy about modern Tokyo. They didn't need having traditional Japanese culture. They needed the lightness and pop of modern Tokyo. Katakana is actually the writing system Japan used to absorb a foreigner word. It perfectly explained the Uniqlo's core nature, absorbing global clothing elements, washing them through Japan's extremely industrial filter, and then exporting them back to the whole world. In Japanese business philosophy, if a company cannot make a real practical contribution to society, today's Uniqlo has now gone beyond being just a clothing store. It's more like a piece of global social infrastructure. Through the We Uniqlo program, they work with the UN refugee angels. They had donated over 54.63 million pieces of clothing to refugees worldwide, and they actively hide recruits in their store in multiple countries. They even donate 100% of the profit from their Peace for All charity t-shirt, learning the SPA model from Gap, to paying the price of one win 9 losses, from a dying small shop in a coral mini storm, to building a 100 billion protecting wall using Japanese craftsmanship and material science. Tadashi Yanai's story is essentially a perfect reflection of the basic difference in the business logic of the US, China, and Japan. If you enjoy this kind of hardcore business documentary video, please be sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. This is very important for me. Thank you.